Okay. I think we're back. Are we back, guys?
Let me refresh the page for you.
Yeah. Let's see what happens. I can only apologise. For some reason, Chrome decided to completely strangle my PC and kill it. So we're back. We're still with TJ. I think we
Hello.
started going a bit back. It went a bit south, probably around the time we were talking about Discord. So let's see if we could just like backtrack and get back on the rails a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously you're a mod in Dynasty Discord.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to, because I unfortunately we cut off, so I didn't hear any of the answers to this. So it's fresh for me, but I think some of the people might have heard it.
We'll repeat it.
So when you're creating work, so you're a really big part of this community. Obviously you're a mod, but also I think you're one of the reasons it amongst a few other people that it's set aside from places like Polycount and Flip Normals because it's so personal, the feedback. Someone posts some work, no matter how advanced, and you still take the time to give them just as much feedback, whether that would be someone like Ben Wilson or a guy in his first year at university. You give just as much thought and detail. So what's your approach when you see, what makes you want to create, what part of that interests you, and what is it you're looking for when you do this?
So I think before we drop down, I was already saying that, we have guys like Rick Greve and Mr. Barbarian who are also in uni and like trying to get into the industry. And the same goes for like a lot of mods as well, like myself and Judd and the other guys. We try and also kind of look out for people who are just starting off because the more you kind of give back to the community as well, it's not only a good feeling, but you might end up working with these people as well. So the things I look out for when it comes to crits is I try and find people who no one is really looking at, and then try and kind of fill in the gaps as well, because very often you see like a really cool work and people just kind of go, oh, that's awesome, but they don't really take the time to look at something that's less impressive or that's in earlier stages. So I think it's interesting to look at that stuff as well.
Do you find it particularly difficult doing that? Like, when you're used to seeing, so say for example, especially if you are actually in industry, obviously you're used to seeing AAA stuff. You work with AAA people yourself, work to a AAA standard. Do you find it difficult to dial it back to someone who's at that beginning stage and give relative credit? Because it could be someone who's first opened up a modelling package, and you're not going to sit there and shred them for their topology or like their flow or anything like that. Do you find it hard to dial it back into that? Right, let's go back to basics and crit on the basics.
I feel that when I'm talking on Discord or if people like send me direct messages as well, I always try and not stress the technical things too much, because in the end it's kind of your insight in art, your knowledge of art theory that really matters. So you don't really have to dial it back too much on like the technical front, because it doesn't matter too much. When it comes to more of like how things look, kind of that kind of feel, we've all been at the start, so you can easily kind of identify the mistakes they're making because you've made them before as well. So it's not too hard,
I mean, to be fair, I do genuinely think that is what sets this Discord out. And I'm not just saying this because I'm fanboying because we're the official podcast of the Empire. I mean,
a little bit as well.
Well, maybe a little bit, but I mean all of the Discords. And I try to be active in all of them. But the level of of one-to-one activity isn't that high. Like you said, you get people post work and say like the Polycount one, and everyone comments saying, "No, that's awesome," but very few take the time to go, well, actually, I think this is particularly wrong. I'd fix this up. I'll do this. I'll do that. Did you think this Discord actually helped? Probably. I mean, when did you join the Discord for one, and did it impact you in your approaching getting into the industry? Did it help improve you? Did it fix up any little bits you weren't aware of?
So I think I joined it must have been like 1.5, 2 years ago. It's been quite a while. I started modding about a year ago as well. And I've never really been someone to constantly posting critiques and constantly ask for people to give me feedback. But I've always kind of, that's a good way to say that, I've always kind of leached off the feedback of other people. You saw people posting a work and someone said, the way that you're doing the wood grain is entirely wrong. I would do it this way. And I would see that and kind of go like, okay, so the piece I'm working on, that's also relevant. So it's kind of like this constant it's like sitting, in an office almost with other artists where you're kind of overhearing people talk about stuff. So I think in that way it's been a giant help, and also just like a large inspiration as well, because you have all these people doing cool stuff. And even if you don't post in there, it's still really awesome to kind of be part of people doing cool stuff.
Yeah, I genuinely believe people like yourself and anyone who is, and I encourage anyone actually, if you're part of the Discord, do take part in the critiques, because I think it will help you it'll set you aside when you are actually in the industry. Because I imagine I'll put a safe bet on you probably give quite good feedback and critiques to your peers.
I hope I do.
Well, I reckon you will, because you do an amazing job with strangers. So with your peers, I imagine you do an even better job. And I think it is one of these skills, like you mentioned earlier, soft skills. I think being an active part of a community, it isn't, obviously you've got the main bit, which is you're a part of a community, which is always nice.
Yeah.
But the ability to troubleshoot, to discuss art, to critique, to think critically. This Discord actually genuinely think does train it in you, even though it's probably not intentional. I do think it plays a big part to it.
I think so. And like another thing that we see happening a lot on Discord is when like someone posts a block out like 2 months ago, and someone gives feedback on that, and every time they post, they keep on giving feedback. So it's almost like this kind of miniature mentorship, which often happens at work as well. One of your coworkers is working on this one project for a while, and you're always kind of looking over his shoulder. So I think it's really cool because you kind of train yourself into working together on projects, even if that working together is just like bouncing off ideas and giving critiques. I think it's really cool.
So do you find that, so for the people who aren't involved in a AAA studio yet, do you feel like you get that same sort of environment then? You have got everyone sort of pulling ideas and critiquing each other, and you have this sort of open discussion about work? Because I think some people think they come into the industry and it's just going to be like, I'm in my own little space, I'm just going to hammer away at this little thing. It is quite open, isn't it? You do like see each other, what each other are doing, and have feedback and opinions on each other's work.
Yeah, so I would say that it's going to differ from team to team and person to person. I've heard stories where it is kind of that way, where you sit down and churn away. But from my personal experience, you're having banter all day about things not related to work, but you're also going to roll over to your teammate and see what they're doing inside Substance Designer, and maybe you're going to offer him a suggestion, or maybe he's going to show you something that's really awesome. And right now, for example, I'm sitting next to my lead. And, she and I are always bouncing ideas off each other on what kind of stuff we're working. So, yeah, I feel it's like very open in the studio. There's a lot of talk in between people.
I'm glad to hear that, 'cause I think that's one of them skills, again, leech off what you said earlier, the soft skills. That ability to be able to have someone critique your work, but you're able to bounce ideas off each other, I think some people struggle with.
Yeah.
And I think that is really what will set you aside to do well in this industry, is the ability to critically look at your work and other people to be able to critique your work and not necessarily get defensive, but to understand what they're saying, maybe agree with, or maybe help define and refine their idea and their opinion of what you're doing.
I think that's one of those things you also kind of learn in university. I've been working together with some guys for like several years in uni. We'd always join up on projects. And you kind of notice it over time. Some people were like super harsh with their critiques first, and very direct, and sometimes like sort of unfair. But over time, you notice their critiques are getting better and better. And at some point, it's it doesn't really feel like critiquing anymore. It's just like a conversation about the work you're doing. And when you get to that point, you kind of know that you've got that soft skill locked down.
Yeah.
I think when it doesn't feel like critiquing, that's really good.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, that's probably a good way of thinking about it. Is just being able to have a conversation about what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
So just talking about your studio work, obviously we're not going to get into details. So, the interview process, I do really think it's going to help a lot of people in hearing from yourself, because it's such a recent thing for you. I mean, you've been there for now, is it less than a year, isn't it?
Yeah, 7-ish months, around about.
So, what was the role you interviewed for? Was it junior, or was it straight into environment artist?
I went for junior. I have a bit of a backstory for that, if you have time for it.
Go on then, story time.
I'll go for it. So when I was in university, and I was finishing up my final project, I didn't want to apply at a lot of places. So I applied at this one place, did an art test for them, and the reply I got on the art test was like, all right, this art test is good, you've done well, but we're going to hire someone with more experience. And then I just thought to myself, I'm not even going to try outside of junior positions, which is a dumb thing. If you are going to apply to regular positions as well. But I decided to only apply to junior positions, so I just applied to a junior position at Creative Assembly, and that was about anything, or like the only thing that I actually had running for me at the time. Which, don't do that. Apply to multiple things, but yeah, I just applied to junior.
Really?
Yeah.
Was it off the back of that art test that made you think like that, or was that something you were going into?
It kind of felt, at the time I was not sure if I wanted to do a master's or not. So I was like, all right, I'll just, do this one application and then kind of see if that goes anywhere. And if that doesn't work out, I'll go do a master.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So all or nothing.
I mean, you've killed it then. I mean, you go so how long were you at Creative Assembly before because you're now a mid-level environment artist, correct?
Yeah.
So how long were you there for that transition? Because you must be absolutely killing it while you're there.
Oh, I don't know how much detail I can go, like exactly how that went, but I think it was 4 or 5-ish months when I made the transition. Yeah.
Wow. Do you think this is, okay, without going into much detail, what sorts of things did you think you've shown in yourself? Was it just your art level was just up to that standard? Was it some of the soft skills you're doing? Combination of the both?
So my portfolio at the time was a bit barren. I was like still working on a lot of things, getting things ready to put on my Artstation and on my personal portfolio. So when I went in there, I had just a few things on my portfolio. So I didn't think they could quite gauge what level I was at. And I think when I got there, it was just sort of a happy surprise that I was slightly better than they expected. And I think in general, for me personally, when I'm in a team, I'm way more motivated to work, and I'm quite a sociable guy. So I think in that way, you kind of make a pleasant impression, and that kind of stuff just helps as well.
Very nice, very nice. So your interview process then, so the whole recruitment process, should I say? Let's start with the sort of the CV and the cover letter. What did you even have to write a cover letter actually? Because I know some recruiters say don't bother. Some yeah.
So I wrote a cover letter for them, but I accidentally sent in the wrong one. I had 2 on my desktop, and I sent in one for another studio that I decided not to apply to in the end. So I used an application that I used a cover letter I wasn't going to use, and I accidentally sent it to CA. And in the interview, the lead just went, "That's fucking hilarious. We don't care." But
that's class.
She did mention, do write cover letters, because most of the time they actually read them. Like if they're interested in your portfolio and your a letter you send, they're gonna read all the stuff you send them. It's important.
So what sort of context did you have on the cover letter? Or did she mention what sort of context she wanted to talk about on the cover letter, or was it just write cover letters?
I think for most studios, just kind of look at the job description and answer kind of the questions you find in that. So if it says we need you to be proficient with the ZBrush, mention that you've used it. Make sure that you are enthusiastic about the studio as well. I think that's a good call to do. But I don't think there's anything super special that makes or breaks a cover letter, honestly.
Nice. I mean, yeah, you say be enthusiastic about the studio. Just disclaimer: be very careful. It's a fine line you tread between being enthusiastic and being a fanboy.
Yeah, you definitely don't go, "Oh my god, I love game A so much. I wanna work at your place," but go "Oh yeah, I've enjoyed playing this game and I think the art style is interesting. I'd love to work on it." Be a bit casual and formal about stuff, somewhere in between. But don't be a fanboy.
Be on the professional side, like you said. Hey, I know that you have XY artists there, and I'm a really big fan of their artwork and the style you guys are doing, rather than be like, "Hey, your game's sick and I played it for 50 hours today."
Yeah, don't do that. Although maybe some studios like it, depends on the person who's going to read it, but most of the time, keep it a bit formal,
Probably depends if it's if it's a social media person reading it or an actual artist. If it's a social media person, they're probably, good show you want. And if it's actual art manager, they're probably just get to it, what's going on.
And I think also for the love of God, I don't know, I haven't heard this from my own lead, right? But there's always a lot of people applying for junior roles, any role really. So keep it, concise. Be a bit direct with your letters, because they have to read through a lot of them, probably.
Yes, 100% agree with that. Getting on to that then, the interview, I don't want to go into too many details about the interview, but was there anything Any tips for it? Any questions that caught you off guard throughout the whole recruitment process? Anything you're like, oh, I didn't expect them to ask that. That's quite a good question.
Yeah, so I think being face to face, first off, there's like, you have a chance to show off your qualities, and there are certain things that are just super important for you as an artist, right? It's a chance for you to show off that you're creative, that you're able to solve problems, but also that you're, a pleasant person to work with. So I think for my kind of similar to the cover letter, really, for one of my main tips is be enthusiastic during the interview. Don't be overly nervous. Calm yourself down and show that you're really interested in the position, right? Show interest. I think that's the key thing in any interview.
Did you do you think so? I from interviews, at least the way we handle them, and I think from what I'm hearing from other people was the same way. Did it feel like there's more they were interviewing you as a person? It wasn't like asking you technical questions, trying to see if you know what you know, because that's what the art test is for. Was it more? Yeah. Did it feel like it's more them getting to know you as a person?
I think, in my opinion, you're looking back on it, I don't know if they sneaked in technical questions. I don't think so. But yeah, it was almost fully entirely about me as a person, because I think your portfolio most of the time showcases your technical skill. And if they do have doubts about that, then you might see that in our test, or they might ask you some questions. But I think it's more about you as a person.
Nice. And anything you think, looking back, you might have done differently between now and then? University, first year of university. Anything you like, not necessarily done different, but done. You learn a few lessons along the way that could make life easier.
Just my entire educational career.
Well, no, not necessarily your educational career, but just between your first year of uni to like now, has there been anything where you're like, oh, if I'd have done that back then, it would help me loads now, type thing?
Mm-hmm. I think finding a focus very early on is important. The first year of university, I didn't know if I wanted to do project management, game design, or game art. So it would have been great to immediately go, art is truly my passion. I want to do that. So I think if you are starting out as a student right now, find what you really want to do. If that's art, do you want to do concept art? Do you want to do character art? Do you want to do environments? Find out what jobs in the industry that you want to do are like, what you need to prepare, and do that immediately. I did that in the second year, and I regret that still. I wish I had done that in the first year.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think the more you understand what you want to do, it's a lot easier to focus in on that. We're talking about that actually today in the Discord. Someone was asking how to like be a better modeler, and it's like, well, it's quite a vague question, isn't it? Whereas if you focus in and go, right, I want to be better at my like retopology or my UV or anything like that, you have a tangible goal, so it's a lot easier to focus on. So I suppose that's similar to what you're saying. It's like knowing exactly what you want to do.
Yeah, so set clear goals for yourself in university. That's gonna help a lot.
So what's the plan now then? Like you, and what I mean is, you're obviously a kick-ass environment artist. You wouldn't be at CA if you weren't. What skills is on your radar in terms of I'd like to develop? Is there skill, or is it more of you want to refine skills? What's coming up for you? You personally.
This is the question I ask myself every day, Alex. I think for me right now, I would love to be better in hard surface stuff. I've always worked on fantasy games, and I would love to kind of focus a little bit more on doing maybe like some weapons, things along those lines. And I think sort of on like a larger scale, I'm really interested in learning more about sort of art direction, sort of like the macro level of, what's the entirety of a project going to look like? Can we visualize what things are going to look like in the end? I think that's really interesting as well.
Yeah, I do notice that, because it's like I see artists go one or two ways. Actually using what you said, they either go to the sort of macro way, they're looking at the big picture, how does the whole scene look together? And then you have artists which I think tend to lead more towards the principal artists and rather than the leads, and they're just like churning out the highest quality assets, making the perfect modular kits for everyone else to use and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah, I think for me personally,
you're leaning towards you're leaning towards the macro side of things, the sort of more lead, the directing type thing.
Yeah, I think I love sitting down and really kind of getting into art, but I think in the end, like personality-wise, I'm just better suited to a lead, or at least someone who has a bit more oversight of stuff, like an outsource manager or something along those lines. I don't think I see myself being a principal artist in 10 years. It doesn't really suit me. I need banter, man. I just need banter.
You know what? I tell you what, fair play for being able to say that though, man. Because like it's easy to not want to say that, if that makes sense. It's easy to say, oh, I'll just see how it goes. Like, but to know, like, yeah, I don't see myself being a principal artist. I see myself being a lead, or I see myself being, like I said, an outsource manager.
Mm-hmm.
That's super important.
So.
I mean, to be fair, I agree as well. Just by the way you behave in the Discord, the way you conduct your critiques and the way you look at stuff. I think you'd be a very, very good lead.
But I first off, I think it would be good to stick with really learning the ropes, so to say. Stick until you get into senior, because I feel the more that about being that guy making the awesome Hordeler kits, the better you're going to be as a lead as well, right? If you can oversee it and understand the technical process, it's going to be better. Yeah,
I have to admit, you can't exactly critique someone like as a lead, like, oh yeah, your modular kit's right, but you don't. You're basically at that point moaning. Like I always say that if you're whining, you're saying something's bad and not giving a solution. When you're critiquing, you're moaning but then giving a solution. So I suppose, you need to probably do the hard yards.
Exactly. You need to get the calluses on your hands before you jump in as a lead.
Ah, very nice. I like that. I haven't heard that one before.
There you go. That's just for you, Alex.
Well, that's not just for me. You got all the people in the chat too.
And for the people listening. Yeah. Of course. Sorry, guys.
Do you? Because obviously at university, we said before, you have time. So if you said yourself, okay, I want to learn substance design. I want to be more interested in that. I'm going to invest my time into that. Mm-hmm. Do you think you'd struggle to do that now with our focus? Because obviously you're spending all day at work, and you are having to work. It is work at the end of the day. You also do you do your mod business in a Discord, which is an all day job anyway. Do you think you'll find you know what I mean? You can't exactly park it for 5 days and not do anything.
No, I couldn't do that. It would hurt me and the community.
Do you think? Well, we would miss your critiques, man.
Oh, right. Yeah.
But do you think you'll find it difficult now to pick up the newer stuff? So say, for example, you said, I wanted to learn Marvelous Designer. I don't know whether you do or don't use it, but you're like, right, I want to become proficient in it. Do you think right now it'll be a much more difficult task compared to when you're at uni? Like, do you find it easy to come home and learn something new, get excited for it, or is it like, right, I need to recharge my batteries a little bit right now because I've been working hard all day?
So the thing I do right now, being in industry, is I don't really spend 5 hours on a Saturday working on a large project. I just don't have the time for that stuff, and also time to relax. I would have time for it, but I'd slowly die. So the way I tend to do things right now is that I try to spend at least an hour or half an hour every day just kind of doodling around in program and really focusing on learning, right? If there's a new Substance Designer update, I'm not going to create an amazing material, but I'm going to try all the new nodes and kind of figure out what they do, right? So I focus myself much more on learning than churning out projects in my spare time.
That's really cool. You know what? I won't lie. That does reflect in the fact that you've stripped out your Artstation to have only the quality on there, and I think that'll probably show when you come to like in your actual work. Like your actual production work, because you're just sitting there churning out projects all the time. You're probably gonna burn out probably a little bit. There's no getting around it. If you're grafting at home and then going in and grafting all day, something's got to give somewhere.
And I think it even goes for students as well, right? You haven't got guys that are like pumping out projects constantly, but I feel that you're going to progress a lot faster in your skills if you do like tiny little bits every now and then, right? Just spend a month doing random Substance Designer stuff and then go make that knockout project. Don't make like a shitty project every month until you slowly get better after a year. I don't think that's a good way to go.
Do you think you can, just on that, do you see yourself anytime soon starting out quote big project? Or do you think it's like, right now, like you said, you just want to dabble in just your half hour, an hour a day in your particular software? Or can you see yourself at some point doing a big project? And if you did, what kind of project would it be for you?
I think if I were to start a big project again, I would immediately downscope it to a medium project. I think doing stuff like kind of the stuff that Derek Elsoff is doing right now, and the thing you made as well. These kind of contained rooms. I think that is a very attractive project to work on. And if I were to do anything, I'd probably do something along along those lines. And then probably kind of before I start, just kind of assess, what do I want to learn, find out what it is that I'm going to make that, and make sure those things fit together, right? If I want to learn more about doing hard surface modeling, I'm not going to do a fantasy scene, right? I'm going to choose to do, I don't know, a gun rack or whatever, those kind of things. So yeah, if I were to do a project, I probably kind of think real hard, what is it that I want to learn, and then just make one room entirely dedicated to that learning process.
Oh man, I'll be fascinated to see what you do. Like, because with your critiques, I can see how much thought goes into it. So I would love to see what you're doing. Because obviously you're in the middle of projects, so nothing's on your Artstation right now from your cool projects. And I can't wait to see what you churn out, because like you can just tell your level of detail, and whatever's going to come out is going to be absolutely stellar.
Yeah, I've been doing some small things right now that I might post at some point. I've been looking a lot at cinematography and the way that they light stuff. So I've been doing like super abstract levels inside Unreal Engine, trying to kind of replicate composition from movies. And I might just, pick one that I really like and start building that up. But I'll have to see in due time.
Is that kind of like the Harley Wilson stuff, where it's like they're just grey rooms where they've just found a nice photograph they liked and just gone, right, I'm just going to put a bunch of grey geo there and just replicate the lighting, and that's it? Is it that kind of thing?
Yeah, exactly. And we had another guy, or girl actually, on our Discord for a while, Casper Stan. I think she's still on there, not super active, but she posted a bunch of stuff replicating, God, what's the movie called again? Bloody hell, I can't come up with it. Replicating scenes from a movie as well with lighting. And also just like super basic textures, super basic geometry. And I think stuff like that is just amazing to do as an artist, because you improve your composition skills so much. And those are vital, right? You can make a cool prop, sure, but you need to look at the bigger picture of environments as well.
To be fair, that's how I've been talking to a few people about, because they're talking about being materials artists, and I think there's been 4 or 5 people in Discord and a couple of friends at work as well, where they want to focus in on materials. And I'm like, don't just churn out substance balls.
No,
because
don't do that.
The fact is, it's just like you just said, it's the exact same with props and lighting. If you churn out props, it's like, yeah, okay, you can make a kick-ass prop, but do you know how to actually pull it into situation? And I've been saying recently, like, if you're going to make materials, make a few materials which belong together, and actually make a shader for them and put them into a scene and show them in use, rather, because I always say Marmoset makes anything look amazing.
Yep.
So it's like, there's nowhere to hide once you put it into the engine. It'll either work or it doesn't.
Yeah, I just posted a link in the Twitch chat, which Carl Horwood did like a couple collaboration with a lighting artist. They used one material and made like a really cool scene, and stuff like that is like, it doesn't take too much effort, right? But if you place your things into context, it's gonna look cooler, and people are gonna see that you're able to actually use stuff like that. Once again, name dropping Derek Elshoff, who made like this really cool bone wall with like dirt and moving shadows and stuff.
Ooh,
you really sell the material when you do that stuff. I'll see if I can find that real quick as well for the Twitch chat.
I think something that's quite interesting about that is, I'm trying to figure out how to explain it. Seeing these relights. So, for example, Tim Simpson's just posted today a relight of one of these sci-fi hallway scenes. I love the fact that more of them are coming about, because, like you said yourself, lighting in itself is its own craft, and it takes practice and honing your skills. And I know Unreal dropped a bunch of scenes for free or for half price, and you got stuff like Decagon as well, where you can get whole level sets and you can craft these levels. I love the fact that these are becoming more prominent, because it's like almost like how the material balls are. When Josh started churning them out, they become the staple. Hey, I'm an environment artist. These balls are on my scene.
Yeah.
Now it's like, I'm seeing more environment relights, and there's that big caption above saying relight or lighting. Now I'm seeing Artstation with more and more of that type of stuff. I'm like, oh, this is great, because it's all. I already knew it was like, and people know it's its own craft anyway. It's its own role. But it's becoming almost sort of in the forefront of the public eye.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. I love it.
I hope you're gonna start posting more of that stuff, man. It'd be sick.
I hope I do. I need to gather some confidence.
Confidence, my ass, man. You kick it, you'll kill it. We sound.
Lighting is a whole other story, man. Lighting is a whole other story.
I think it's definitely harder. I think it's one of those crafts where it's you've got nowhere to hide, and also I think it's the final stage between making and breaking things.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll talk about the stages of this. I believe it was either yourself or Jay, and we were like, you've got your prop modeling, like block out prop modeling, scene composition, texturing, materials, and then rendering. And you can have perfect all the way along that pipeline, and then lighting can make it look like the most amateur crap scene ever.
Dude, people like the block out is one of the key things in any scene, in my opinion, right? Just the pure abstract level of kind of your basic colors and your super basic lighting. That's what's gonna make or break something. You can put as much detail in your textures. You can have awesome props, but in the end, if like the big picture just doesn't work, the entire thing doesn't work. You know?
Yeah, and I think you can also like lighting, as well as killing a good scene, can also save some bad props if you get the lighting perfect. And I think it is a really, what's the word, undervalued skill for people newer to the industry, because like you said, it is literally what you just said, block out and lighting. They're probably the two skills. Everyone focuses so hard on making killer materials or killer props. Me and myself included, by the way. I include myself in this.
I think any artist is guilty of nitpicking details and forgetting about the big picture.
Yeah,
that just happens.
It's really interesting actually, because Marcel was saying like last week, you have to be willing to realize what's the hero prop and what isn't, because if you put detail everywhere, then suddenly nothing stands out. You have to like know where, once you do your block out, like you said, and work out your keyframes and that, which is a skill in itself. It's amazing some of the stuff people can put together. Like that's why I find the Harley Wilson scenes, and I'm really interested to see what you do, bro. I am, because I find them scenes, like I said, there's nowhere to hide. They'll either look good or they'll look pointless. And I'm so excited to see what you put up for that. When you get around. No pressure. I'm not putting pressure on you. That's why I just get pumped, man. I just get pumped, man. I get pumped to see what people are doing.
Yeah. But I think, I don't know if other artists even agree with me on this, but yeah, it's just having that like core sense of what feels right in composition and shape and values. If you nail that, it's such a valuable skill. It's really important.
Let's just talk about that a little bit, since I know you were very well read on this type of stuff. I mean, when I was asking about it in the Discord, you linked me about 8 or 9 videos, which I'm only about 3 into, and like a load of articles and books. So I'm gonna make an assumption here that you're pretty well read on this sort of stuff.
Yeah, I do really like reading up on that stuff. Yeah, for sure.
So what's some of the stuff you've learned from reading up on that? Like in terms of composition, any like useful nuggets of information that you've gone, holy shit, that's really interesting. I didn't think of that. When you're when we're talking about composition, block out, and lighting, them skills which not as appreciated as they should be.
Yeah, so I think I don't want to repeat myself too much, right? But I've watched this one talk by a concept artist, Stefan, I believe it's Stefan Richards. He goes by Wutha on his Artstation, and he kind of made this like little pyramid of what he thinks is the most important stuff, and he thinks that everything starts with this thing he calls abstraction, which is just your pure black and white colors. And that's something I used to never think about, right? I would always start, already making intricate shapes and kind of modeling the props a little bit and putting a little bit of color here and there. And he was just like, no, just purely go for your basic shapes and your basic grayscale, and that's the only thing that matters. But he also says that you don't always have to follow the very conventional rules. So, we often see people using the golden ratio all the time, or the rule of thirds, and those are very valid, but it's also okay to like break the rules and try out new stuff. So yeah, I think the most important things are, don't be afraid to break the rules, as long as like parts of your composition still works. As long as the core shapes and the core values still work, go mad, try things out. And a super cheeky thing that you can always apply, that I've learned, is never place like 2 boxes next to each other, or 4. Always make it 3 or 5, because that reads way more naturalistic.
Always use like odd numbers.
always use odd numbers. That's a little nugget for you.
That's an interesting one. I've never heard that one, but that's a very interesting one.
Just, if you are in Unreal, right, and you got two boxes, try and twist one slightly to the side and like scale one up a little bit more. It's gonna immediately be better.
Wow. That's actually this is what I'm saying, man. You're well read on this shit because that little bit of information. I'm like, I've never heard that, and it makes sense straight away.
Yeah. The same thing goes for, all right, if we're going into abstract art theory things.
Yes,
one of the things one of the things I think is super undervalued is the idea of visual rhythm, which is essentially, let's say you're making like a room full of pillars and you space all of them evenly out. It's going to feel like, you have like a steady drum beat, like a steady rhythm. And I think a lot of people don't notice these things in their scenes and how powerful how powerful you can make visuals look by using this rhythm. So you can, for example, have like let's stay with boxes. If you have 3 boxes and you go from like a small one to a big one, right? It's going to have this rhythm of going bigger and bigger. In music, that would be a crescendo. And those kind of lead ups to things are like super important. And once you start realizing that kind of thing and how you can play around with that, I think that's super interesting as well.
I think this is where there's sort of the really talented lighting artists and composition artists really come to the fore, because I think it's being able to, you said yourself, like, it's almost not noticeable, it's subconscious. Like, you just said with having even boxes feels unnatural, having 3 boxes feels more natural.
Yeah.
I think it's that ability to almost observe the subconscious stuff. So like you're saying, having a natural rhythm to a scene. I don't think many artists know how to do that. They don't, because they don't even know, they're not aware of it because it's subconscious.
I was talking to this or about something like this with my lead, where students will often ask people like, all right, so how do you handle composition? How do you handle propping your scene? And this like stupid thing is we can recommend a lot of like books you can read, right, that are useful. But for me personally, very often it's just like a gut feeling, right? When I see 2 boxes that are in the same rotation, the same scale, and there's just 2 of them, I'll just feel like this nasty feeling in my stomach. I know something's wrong. And I think when you just take time to look at art, and when you take time to, read up a little bit as well, but just mainly also just look at art, you'll start noticing things that feel off. And when you're doing your own work, you'll be more confident in that feeling, that gut feeling of, this art's not right.
I think being able to break down that, and it's like, so after talking to Marcel last week about like, the way when he's putting art together and games together, like leading the eye and all that sort of stuff. Like that's almost a cliche at this point in composition. Yeah, lead the eye in a golden ratio, like you said. But when you then look within that, so say for example, leading the eye thing, it's like, okay, well, what's the rhythm of that? And leading up to crescendos and all this type of stuff. Where, like you said, it's really abstract, but
yeah, it is.
It's hard to observe. It's not like it's because it's subconscious. You can't observe it, and therefore you can't be aware of it, and therefore you can't do stuff intentionally.
That's why I think like. Try and like read up a little bit on art theory, right? Just learn the basic, learn about composition, learn about tangents, and just start looking at art, right? Look at what works, and at some point you'll be able to identify them, even if that becomes, a subconscious thing that's hard to measure. At least you can kind of, put your own finger on it, and over time you might be able to spot it in other people's work as well. That's kind of the hope that you have. But
I mean, I have to admit, specifically you actually is being part of this Discord, and you link me with that resource, and I think other people chipped in as well. There's stuff you read up on and you're like, oh god, you look back on your stuff, you're like, oh, I've been missing so much. So recently I've been relighting a sci-fi scene, and I haven't really spent much time on it. I was more looking at the composition and lighting, but I was looking at my old renders from like a couple of years ago to some of my newer like work in progress shots. And I was like, oh, God, I'm looking at the old stuff like, yeah. I don't know why I did that. Like, this is the thing, because you're not aware of it. And I wasn't really aware of it when I was doing my work in progress shots, but back then I was just sort of grabbing what I thought looked cool.
Yeah.
And then in my work in progress shots, I'm subconscious. This is why I think it's so hard. I'm subconsciously putting these shots together slightly better. And I'm like, I have no idea why it looks better. I don't really know. Like, the lighting ain't that much different. The props are the exact same.
But, it looks better, so... You change yourself,
It's like you're right though. It is that gut feeling. It's like it just feels right.
Yeah, and even with that, you know, you're gonna mess up, and that's all right too. Don't worry too much. But
yeah, I do think you're right. God, it's a rabbit hole of information of this abstract stuff, because it's all right though. It's like this is the thing. It is completely underlying of everything. Like everything sits on top of this foundation of your abstract beginning bit, which you're completely right saying is like, I can see why you the artist you referenced puts it at the bottom of the pyramid, because it will. You can make, say, using your box analogy, you can make the best looking weapons crate ever. You put them in the scene slightly wrong. Okay, now it looks really bad.
It's all messed up. Yeah.
Dude, I can't believe how interesting that stuff is, man. Like, you could just read and talk about that all day. Is there any like I don't want to call them rookie mistakes because it's not really a fair thing to say, but beginner errors you see in that type of thing that you're like, right, this is a really easy fix. Stop doing this. It's bad. Just stop.
That's now you're asking the real hard questions. Well, I mean, the one I've already said, right? People don't take time to do their blockout. Don't take time to do lighting. That's just, come on, man, do that, please. When it purely comes to like an abstract thing, I wouldn't really have one thing. I think I'm sorry, man.
Yeah,
gonna have to disappoint you.
Well, no, you already gave us some great ones, like for example the odd numbers and the rhythm, and you know what? The one thing you've mentioned already today, which has already made me think about a composition scene I'm working on, is that whole rhythm leading into a crescendo. Like straight away, I'm like, oh wow, you could just do, like, you could make a whole scene based on that one principle. I
mean, this, like, you can, the beauty of like the idea of rhythm. I'm sorry for people listening. Like, we're getting real abstract, right? But the cool thing about stuff like rhythm is that it also applies to game art way better than a lot of composition techniques, because you often have like moving images, right? So if you look at a game like Forza, where you go into a tunnel and you get like all these little like windows of light that start reflecting, so you get like this flickering where you have like a rhythm as well, and then you go outside for the tunnel and suddenly you're blasted by sunlight, right? That's kind of similar to that crescendo idea. And so rhythm like applies to that, you know, moving camera idea that you get in games way more. And similarly, right, you don't always have to rely on having like a steady rhythm. If you look at games like Dark Souls, where still going with the pillar idea, you have like this row of pillars and one is suddenly broken down, it's like way more clear, like, oh yeah, this world is entirely fucked. I just realized that because this entire line that I expect to continue has been broken. So it's like a super powerful tool to use in games.
It's actually, you know what, you mentioning that has made me think of where it's been used really, really well in the Mass Effect, in Mass Effect 2, where you're in like the Citadel for the first time. And like there's a rhythm to the whole scene. It's like these really clean, smooth lines. There's no debris anywhere. There's no rubbish. Everything's just super clean. There's no broken lines. And then you got the later part of the game where you go back to the Citadel when it's under attack. And like you could remove all the context. You could remove the story, the lighting, the props. If you just took the clean silhouettes of all them things, you'd instantly be able to tell one's clean and one's in a battlefield just because of the silhouettes and the lines. And like I'm only just thinking about that now you're mentioning it, especially with that Dark Souls reference.
Yeah, I think that's why I'm saying, like, if you nail the block out, you know, things are gonna read so much better. It's all about that, just the core shapes and lighting. If you got that down, you're like halfway there.
Oh man, all I can think about is that now and how much time I need to spend on a block out, because I'm in the process of a block out right now, so I'm like, oh, I've got all this stuff to think about.
Alex, give it that extra touch of love for me, man.
Oh no, I've got the easy option. I'm in the Discord. I'm just going to post the critiques and at you every time, and like,
that's fine as well.
And as soon as you say I can see the crescendo, I'm like, right, I've done it, I win, I'm done.
Yeah, and I think definitely once you start learning these things, as I said before, start looking at other art, start looking at your old projects. Like reflecting on your own stuff is really powerful as well, because you're going to realize, oh yeah, I've used this before, right? I know how this works. I've done it by accident, but now I realize that was a thing.
Dude, this stuff needs to be spoken about more. It's amazing there's not, actually.
It is. It totally is, yeah.
Dude, you could be the voice for it. You could be the voice for crescendos in the art industry.
I like how you got really close to the mic when you said that.
Did it intensify and focus the whole thing?
Jesus Christ, Alex. Yes, it did.
Man, dude, we're gonna wrap up.
Yeah, we should.
Right, firstly, I need to apologise to everyone who tried to watch for the technical error midway through. Yeah, Chrome screwed over on PC. Don't open Chrome midstream. Lesson learned. We won't repeat that one again.
Use Internet Explorer.
He said it, not me. TJ, dude, thank you so much for coming on. I really, really appreciate it. And
thanks for having me,
you know
man.
what? I did expect to be talking about abstract art concepts, but I'm so glad we did. I think everyone really appreciated that.
That was a lot of fun. I like that.
Right, guys, just so you know, down below the Twitch, there is a panel to join the Dynasty Discord. Hook up, get on there, because you'll be able to have feedback from people like TJ and everyone else, and trust me, it's worth your while. You'll learn a ton. Down there, there's also YouTube links, Spotify, iTunes. Subscribe, follow, do whatever you need to do. I'll be updating the VOD tonight. And if you want to keep on top of the latest news for the podcast, who's coming on, and any changes to the schedule, either follow my Artstation blog or my Twitter. I'll post information to both of them. But we'll finish up for tonight, dude. TJ, thank you so much, bro.
Thank you.
Peace out, guys. Bye-bye.